My boss looked me dead in the eye and fired me after 10 years of building her company from the ground up. She called me expensive and obsolete. Then I went home early to find my husband draining our savings account for his deadbeat sister. They thought I was a victim. They had no idea I was the one holding the kill switch. Before I tell you how I brought down a corporation and my toxic marriage in 48 hours, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to remind people exactly who you are. The glass walls of the conference room felt like a cage, but I was not the one trapped. Bianca, the newly appointed CEO, who had been in the role for exactly 3 months, tossed a manila folder onto the mahogany table. It slid across the polished surface and stopped inches from my hand. "Sasha, we need to talk about the future of Apex Logistics," she said, her voice dripping with faux sympathy. "After reviewing the quarterly budget, we have decided to restructure the operations department. Your position as COO is being eliminated effective immediately." I looked at the woman sitting across from me. She was older than me but tried desperately to look 25. She resented that the board listened to me more than her. She resented that I knew every line of code in our logistics software. Frankly, she just hated me because I was better at her job than she was. "Restructuring," I repeated, keeping my voice dangerously even. "That is an interesting word for firing the person who built your entire supply chain infrastructure." Bianca leaned back in her chair, a smug smile playing on her lips. "Let us be honest, Sasha. You are a legacy hire. Your salary is bloated, and quite frankly, your methods are outdated. We need fresh energy. We need innovation. We are offering you a standard severance package if you sign the non-disclosure agreement right now. You have until Friday to clear out your desk, but I want your access badge today." I picked up the pen. I did not argue. I did not cry. I did not remind her that I was the innovation she was talking about. I did not mention that without me the servers would not know how to talk to the distribution centers. I just looked at the termination date typed in bold letters. "So, to be clear, my employment and all responsibilities end today right now?" I asked, locking eyes with her. Bianca laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. "Yes, Sasha. Right now. Do not expect a goodbye party. Just sign the papers and go." "Perfect." I signed the paper with a flourish. The scratch of the pen against the paper was the only sound in the room. I stood up, smoothing down my skirt. I walked out of the conference room without looking back. The open-floor office was silent. Junior analysts I had mentored looked down at their keyboards, too terrified of Bianca to meet my gaze. I did not blame them. I walked to the elevator, my heels clicking a steady rhythm on the floor. As the doors slid shut, cutting off the view of the empire I had built, I pulled out my phone. I opened a secure messaging app and typed 3 words to an unknown number: "Execute Omega Protocol." The walk back to my desk felt like a funeral procession, where I was both the corpse and the pallbearer. The open floor plan of Apex Logistics, a layout I had designed to foster collaboration, now served as a theater for my public execution. I reached my workspace, the corner office, with the view of the Atlanta skyline, and picked up a cardboard box. I did not rush. I folded my personal photos. I stacked my awards. I placed the crystal paperweight my father gave me for my promotion 5 years ago on top. I looked up through the glass walls. Kevin, the senior analyst I had hired when no one else would give him a chance because of his criminal record, saw me looking. He immediately turned his chair around, pretending to be engrossed in a spreadsheet. Sarah, whose maternity leave I had fought the board to extend with full pay, suddenly found the pattern on the carpet fascinating. 10 years of mentorship, late-night pizza orders, and covering their mistakes, erased in 10 minutes by the fear of the new tyrant. They were terrified. Bianca had made it clear that loyalty to me was a fireable offense. I was placing my final personal notebook into the box when the double doors swung open with a violent crash. Bianca stood there, flanked by 2 uniformed security guards. She was not content with just firing me. She needed to make an example of me. She needed to show the entire floor that the old guard was dead. "Everyone stop working," Bianca shouted, her voice shrill and commanding. Heads snapped up. The silence was absolute. "I want everyone to witness this. This is what happens when you become dead weight." Officers escort Ms. King from the building immediately. Ensure she does not touch any company property. If she tries to access a computer, arrest her. The larger guard stepped forward, reaching for my arm. I pulled back sharply. "Do not touch me," I said, my voice low, but carrying enough authority that he hesitated. "I am leaving. There is no need for the theatrics," Bianca sneered, crossing her arms over her chest. "I decide what is necessary. You are a security risk, Sasha. You know too much about our operations. I want her out of here now. Walk her out like the liability she is." I picked up my box. I held my head high. I looked Bianca straight in the eyes and gave her a small, pitying smile. "You are right, Bianca. I do know too much. Remember that." I began the long walk to the elevators, the guards trailing a foot behind me like I was a convict. I could feel the eyes of 50 employees burning into my back. The shame they tried to project onto me slid off. I felt lighter with every step. As we passed the central server room, the glass-enclosed heart of the company, where the blue lights of the server racks hummed with the data of 1,000,000 shipments, I paused. "Keep moving?" The guard grunted. I ignored him for a split second. I looked through the glass at the black towers of technology. Those servers ran on my architecture. They breathed because I told them how to breathe. I leaned slightly toward the glass, my breath fogging it for a brief second. "Sleep well," I whispered. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside. As the doors slid shut, cutting off the sight of Bianca's triumphant smirk and the cowardly faces of my former team, I checked my watch. It was 2 o'clock. The servers would update at midnight. They had 10 hours left to live. I pulled my car into the driveway at 2 in the afternoon. The house should have been empty. I expected silence. I expected a sanctuary where I could pour a stiff drink and process the fact that my career was over. Instead, I saw a red convertible parked crookedly across 2 spots. It belonged to Courtney, my husband's sister-in-law. The woman who smiled to my face at Thanksgiving and rolled her eyes every time I turned my back. I unlocked the front door without making a sound. The adrenaline from the confrontation with Bianca had not faded. It had sharpened my senses. I could hear giggling drifting from the living room. I took off my heels and walked softly down the hallway in my stocking feet. The plush runner absorbed my steps. I stopped just outside the archway to the living room, pressing my back against the wall. The sight that greeted me made the bile rise in my throat. Courtney was standing in front of the floor-length mirror. She was draping my limited edition Hermes Birkin bag over her shoulder. The bag I had bought to celebrate my 35th birthday. The bag I had worked 80-hour weeks to afford. She was posing, twisting her hips and pursing her lips at her reflection. "God, this color is completely wasted on her," Courtney said, her voice dripping with disdain. "She is such a boring old hag. She probably keeps this wrapped in a dust bag in the dark. It deserves to be seen, Dante. It deserves someone with actual style and youth." Dante was sitting at the dining table, his back to me. He was hunched over his laptop, typing furiously. He did not even look up at her. "Just borrow it for the weekend," he mumbled. "If she asks, I will say I took it to get the leather conditioned. She is so distracted lately she barely notices what happens in her own house. She is too busy playing boss lady to pay attention to her inventory." I watched Dante hit the enter key with an aggressive tap. I saw the green confirmation bar flash on the screen reflected in the mirror behind him. "There we go," he said, leaning back in his chair and cracking his knuckles. $50,000 transferred. That should cover the back rent for your boutique and get the tax board off your back for a few months. My breath hitched in my chest. $50,000. That was not spending money. That was our liquidity. That was the money we had been saving for a down payment on a new property. He had just liquidated our safety net to bail out Courtney's failing candle shop. Courtney squealed and rushed over to hug him, the Birkin swinging from her arm. You are the best brother-in-law ever. I knew you would not let me down. Unlike her, she is so stingy. She acts like she earned every penny herself. Dante laughed, and it was a sound I had never heard before. Cold and calculating. It is not her money anymore, Court. It is our money. And what she does not know will not hurt her. We just need to keep this quiet until the next statement cycle. I stood there in the shadows, gripping the cardboard box that held the remnants of my career. My job was gone. My savings were gone. My marriage was a lie. I realized then that I did not just have to destroy a company. I had to burn my entire life to the ground and build something new from the ashes. I took a deep breath, fixed a smile on my face, and stepped into the light. Oh, you are home! Dante jumped up from his chair, slamming his laptop shut. The guilt was written all over his face, but it vanished the second he saw the cardboard box in my arms. Courtney froze my Birkin bag, still draped over her shoulder. She did not even try to take it off. She just smoothed her hair and gave me that pitying look she reserved for people she considered beneath her. I was fired, I said, dropping the box onto the dining table with a heavy thud. The crystal vase shook. Bianca, let me go. Effective immediately, I waited for the hug. I waited for the question. Are you okay? Instead, the air left the room. Dante's face went from guilty to purple in 3 seconds flat. You were, what he screamed. He did not move toward me. He moved away, pacing the length of the rug like a caged animal. Fired. Are you kidding me, Sasha? We just bought the Tesla. The country club dues are next week. How could you let this happen? She said. They were restructuring, I replied calmly, watching him unravel. It was not a negotiation. It is always a negotiation, Dante roared. He kicked the leg of the chair. You probably gave her attitude, did you not? You always have to be the smartest person in the room. You could not just keep your mouth shut and collect the check. That is 6 figures down the drain because you have an ego problem. Courtney chimed in, walking over to stand beside him, still wearing my 5-figure bag like armor. She placed a hand on his arm, performing the role of the supportive woman while stabbing me in the back. I told you this would happen. Dante, she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. This is why I do not believe in women acting like men. Career women are so unstable, they get emotional, they clash with authority, and then they come home and dump their failures on their husbands. A real wife protects her husband's peace. Sasha. She does not destroy his financial security. Financial security? I asked, looking at Dante. You mean my salary? The one that pays for this house, your car, and apparently Courtney's wardrobe. Dante whirled on me, his finger pointing in my face. Do not throw that in my face. We are partners, or we were supposed to be. But now you are just a liability. What am I supposed to tell my friends, that my wife could not hold down a job? That we are broke? We are not broke. Dante, I said, my voice dropping an octave. I have savings. Or at least I thought I did. He froze. The vein in his forehead pulsed. What is that supposed to mean? You better not have touched our liquidity. That money is for investments, for our future. Our future? Courtney echoed, smirking at me. Maybe if you had focused less on climbing the ladder and more on being a supportive partner, you would not be in this mess. Now Dante has to clean up your disaster again. They stood there united in their greed and contempt. They did not see a wife or a sister-in-law who had just lost a decade of her life. They saw an ATM that had just run out of cash, and they were furious. Well, since my income is currently zero, things are going to change around here immediately, I said, walking past them to the kitchen island. The Tesla lease is going back. The country club membership is canceled effective today. And Courtney, I hope you enjoyed that transfer, because it is the last dime you will ever see from this household. Courtney gasped, clutching the Birkin bag tighter. Dante followed me into the kitchen, his face contorted with panic. You cannot cancel the club. I have tea times booked with investors. You cannot embarrass me like that. Sasha, We have an image to maintain. An image costs money, Dante, and right now, we are bleeding it. So unless you plan on getting a real job instead of playing venture capitalist with my paycheck, the party is over. Dante's eyes narrowed. He looked at Courtney, who was fake crying in the living room, then back at me. He lowered his voice, but the menace was louder than a scream. There is another option. You have a 401k, Sasha. You have stock options from the last 10 years. That has to be worth what? $500,000, cash it out. I stopped pouring my water. You want me to liquidate my retirement? To pay the penalties and taxes, just so you can keep pretending to be rich? It is not just for me, Dante hissed. It is for family. Courtney needs liquidity to restructure her business. If you cash out your retirement, we can cover her debts and keep the lifestyle afloat until I close my next deal. You owe us this, Sasha. You lost your job. You created this instability. It is your duty to fix it. I owe you nothing, I replied, setting the glass down hard. My retirement is for when I am old, not for your sister's failed candle shop. The answer is no. Dante slammed his fist onto the marble island. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Courtney squeaked, but did not intervene. She watched, hungry for the money. I am not asking you. I am telling you. Dante roared, leaning over me, his breath hot on my face. I am the man of this house. You might have earned the check, but I decide how it is spent. You have emasculated me for years, with your ambition and your success. Well, now you are nothing. You are just an unemployed wife. And you will do what I tell you. Log into the account right now and transfer the funds, or so help me. God, I will make your life a living hell. I looked at him. This man I had married. This leech who thought he was a lion. I did not flinch. I did not step back. I just let a small, cold smile touch my lips. That is a very compelling speech, Dante, I said, my voice soft and sweet. There is just one tiny problem. Even if I wanted to help you, which I definitely do not, I literally cannot. What are you talking about? He demanded. I leaned in close so he could see the joy in my eyes. Too bad that account is frozen, I said. The bank flagged some suspicious activity this afternoon, specifically a $50,000 unauthorized transfer. They locked everything down, pending a fraud investigation. It looks like nobody is getting paid today. I walked up the stairs, the sound of Dante's fury vibrating through the floorboards. I reached the master bedroom and turned the lock with a satisfying click. It was a heavy deadbolt I had installed myself a year ago, when Dante's temper started showing its cracks. I leaned against the door for a moment, listening to him screaming my name downstairs. He was trashing the kitchen. I could hear the crash of expensive cookware hitting the floor. I pulled out my burner phone. I kept it taped under the drawer of my vanity for emergencies. This was definitely an emergency. I dialed a number I knew by heart. It rang once. Marcus here. His voice was smooth, deep, and sounded like expensive scotch. Marcus was the best contract lawyer in Atlanta. He was also the only man I trusted completely. It is happening, Marcus, I said, walking over to the safe hidden behind the walk-in closet mirror. They fired me today, effective immediately. There was a pause, then a low chuckle. Bianca finally pulled the trigger. She is bolder than I thought, or stupider. Did you sign the severance? Yes. And Dante just confessed to wire fraud. He drained the joint account for Courtney. I spun the dial on the safe, left, right, left. The heavy door swung open. Inside sat a stack of documents bound in leather. My life's insurance policy. Marcus let out a sharp breath. That voids the fidelity clause in the prenup immediately. Section 4, Paragraph 2. Any unauthorized dissipation of marital assets for the benefit of a third party constitutes a breach of financial trust. He walks away with nothing. Sasha, not the house, not the cars, not a single share of your personal portfolio. I pulled out the blue folder labeled Intellectual Property and the software. I asked, tracing the signature on the bottom page. That is the beauty of it, Marcus said. The contract states, Apex Logistics retains a license to use the King Logistics architecture, only so long as Sasha King remains an active employee in good standing. Upon termination without cause, the license revokes automatically at midnight, so they are running on borrowed time. Whispered, exactly. By tomorrow morning, their entire fleet will be blind. They will not be able to track a single package. You own the code, Sasha. You always have. A violent thud against the bedroom door made me jump. The wood groaned under the impact. Sasha, open this door right now! Dante screamed from the hallway. His voice was slurred with rage and probably the expensive whiskey he had been hoarding. We need to talk about this like adults. You cannot just lock me out of my own room. Unlock it, or I will break it down. I stared at the door. I was not afraid. I felt a cold, hard clarity settling over me. Marcus, I said into the phone. I need you to file the restraining order and get the divorce papers ready. I want him served before the ink dries on my termination letter. Consider it done, Marcus said. Be safe, Sasha. Do not let him in. I hung up and slipped the phone into my pocket. I grabbed the duffel bag I kept packed in the back of the closet. I did not need much, just the hard drives, the jewelry my grandmother left me, and the signed contracts that proved I owned everything. Dante pounded on the door again, harder this time. You are being selfish, he yelled. Just transfer the money back from your personal account, and we can fix this. Courtney is family. You are destroying this family over money. I zipped up the bag. I walked to the window and looked out at the driveway. My car was parked there, gleaming under the streetlights. I had a plan. I had the power. And Dante had no idea that the door he was banging on was the only thing keeping him from the reality that he was already homeless. I am not destroying the family. Dante, I said to the empty room. I am just taking out the trash. The pounding on the bedroom door finally stopped around 11 o'clock. I pressed my ear against the cool wood and listened. I heard heavy footsteps retreating down the hall, followed by the distinct sound of a body collapsing onto the guest bed. Then silence. Dante had passed out. The whiskey had done its job. Now was my time. I moved with surgical precision. I did not pack clothes because clothes could be replaced. I packed my leverage. I swept the external hard drives into my bag. These drives contained the uncompiled source code for the entire Apex Logistics platform. They were the only master copies in existence. Bianca thought she ran a software company, but she was about to find out she only rented the interface. I took the velvet pouch containing my grandmother's diamond earrings and the pearl necklace that had been in my family for 3 generations. I took my passport. I took the original deed to the house. I opened the bedroom door inches at a time. The hinges were well oiled because I had seen to that myself. The hallway was dark. I could hear Dante snoring from the guest room. It was a wet, rattling sound that used to annoy me, but now just sounded like weakness. I walked past his door without a glance. I walked down the stairs, my hand trailing along the banister. I had paid for this banister. I had paid for the art on the walls. I had paid for the roof over his head. I stepped into the cool night air. The driveway was empty except for my car. I put the bag in the passenger seat. I looked back at the house one last time. It looked peaceful from the outside. It looked like a home. But it was not a home anymore. It was a crime scene, and I was the detective who had just solved the case. I started the engine and drove away without turning on my headlights until I hit the main road. I did not cry. I was done crying. I drove straight to the St. Regis in Buckhead. The night manager looked surprised to see a woman checking in at 1 in the morning, with nothing but a leather duffel bag and a determined look in her eyes. I will be staying for a while, I told him, handing over my black card. I need the penthouse suite, and I need absolute privacy. No calls, no visitors. He handed me the keycard with a nod. I took the elevator to the top floor. The suite was expansive. It smelled of lilies and old money. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows and looked out at the Atlanta skyline. Somewhere out there, Bianca was sleeping soundly, believing she had won. Somewhere out there, Courtney was dreaming of spending my money. I placed the hard drives on the glass desk. I opened my laptop. I poured myself a glass of water from the crystal carafe. I was not just a fired employee anymore. I was not just a cheated wife. I was the architect of their destruction. I sat down and opened the command terminal. Let the games begin. Bianca strutted into the lobby of Apex Logistics at 9 o'clock sharp, holding a latte and wearing a smile that said she owned the world. She expected the hum of productivity, the sound of conveyor belts moving packages, and the murmur of sales calls. Instead, she walked into a funeral parlor. The reception desk was empty. The usual buzz of the operations floor was replaced by a heavy, suffocating silence interspersed with the frantic clicking of mice and the sound of hushed, panicked whispers. She walked through the double doors onto the main floor, expecting to see her employees hard at work, erasing my legacy. Instead, she saw a sea of red. Every single monitor in the office, from the junior dispatchers to the senior vice presidents, was glowing with an angry crimson light. It looked like the building was bleeding. "What is going on here?" Bianca demanded, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "Why is nobody working? Where are the shipment confirmations, Kevin?" The senior analyst looked up. His face was pale. The sweat on his forehead was visible even from a distance. He pointed a shaking finger at his screen. Bianca marched over and looked. The text was white against the red background, bold and impossible to miss. System halted. Critical license failure, software, architecture. King Logistics protocol has expired. Reason termination of license holder. Sasha. King, please contact administrator for renewal. Bianca stared at the screen, blinking rapidly. "This is a glitch," she snapped. "Fix it. Reboot the servers. Call it right now." "We tried," Kevin whispered. "We tried everything. The system is locked down. It is not just us. It is the warehouse, the distribution centers in Texas and Chicago. They are all offline. Nothing is moving, Bianca. Nothing." The phone on Kevin's desk began to ring. It was a harsh, jarring sound. Then the phone at the next desk started. Then another. Within 10 seconds, the entire room was filled with the cacophony of ringing telephones. It was the sound of a business dying in real time. The vice president of sales rushed out of his office, holding his cell phone away from his ear. "You need to take this," he yelled at Bianca. "It is the regional director for Amazon. They have 50 trucks sitting at our loading docks and the gates will not open. They cannot load. They cannot unload. They are threatening to pull the contract if we do not get the fleet moving in 10 minutes. Bianca grabbed the phone, her hand trembling. "Get Gary from it. Down here now," she screamed at the room, ignoring the Amazon executive on the line. "I want this fixed. I want Sasha." "King's name off my screens." Gary. The IT director ran onto the floor, looking like he had just seen a ghost. He was holding a tablet that showed the same red error message. He did not wait for Bianca to yell at him. He just shook his head. "I cannot bypass it, Bianca. The source code is encrypted. The entire platform runs on a kernel that Sasha wrote herself. It checks her employment status against the HR database every 24 hours and you changed her status to terminated in the system on Friday. It triggered the kill switch. The license revoked itself at midnight. Then hack it," Bianca shrieked, throwing the sales VP's phone onto a desk. "Just break the code. You are the IT director. Do your job." "I cannot break it," Gary yelled back, losing his patience. "It is military-grade encryption. If we try to force it, the system is designed to wipe the database. We will lose client history, billing records, everything. It is over, Bianca. We are dead in the water unless she unlocks it." Gary held the tablet in front of Bianca's face like a shield. "Read it," he said, pointing to the paragraph highlighted in yellow. It is right there in black and white. Clause 14. B. Intellectual property retention. The King Logistics architecture remains the sole property of Sasha King. Apex Logistics is granted a revocable non-exclusive license to utilize said architecture contingent upon her continued employment. Bianca snatched the tablet, though her eyes scanned the legal jargon. Her perfectly manicured hands began to shake. "This cannot be legal," she sputtered. "She built this while working for us. It belongs to the company. That is how employment works." "Not this time," Gary shot back. "The previous CEO signed this 10 years ago because they could not afford to pay her what she was worth. They gave her ownership of the code instead of a higher salary. It was a cost-saving measure. And you just fired the landlord, Bianca. The lease is up. We are squatting in her digital house and she just changed the locks." The reality crashed down on Bianca. She looked around the office. The phones were still ringing off the hook. The Amazon executive was probably drafting a breach of contract lawsuit right now. She had not just fired an employee, she had evicted the company from its own foundation. "Get her on the phone," Bianca screamed, throwing the tablet back at Gary. "Call her now. Offer her whatever she wants. Double her salary. Give her a bonus. Just get this screen to turn green." "I tried," Gary said. "She is not picking up. You have to call her. She might answer the CEO." Bianca fumbled for her phone. Her fingers slipped on the screen as she dialed Sasha's number. She put it on speaker. The ringback tone echoed through the silent, terrified office. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3 rings. "Please pick up." Bianca hissed, her composure gone. "Please pick up, you witch." 5 miles away in the serenity of the St. Regis Spa, Sasha King was lying face down on a massage table. The air smelled of lavender and eucalyptus. A soft chime sounded from inside her locker in the changing room. The screen of her phone lit up in the darkness. The name Bianca Apex Logistics flashed urgently. Sasha did not hear it. She was too busy listening to the soft instrumental music and the sound of her own steady breathing. She took a sip of cucumber water and closed her eyes. She imagined the chaos she had left behind. She imagined the red screens. She imagined Bianca's face turning the same shade of crimson. A small, peaceful smile touched her lips. "Let them burn," she thought. She rolled her shoulders, relaxing into the massage. The phone in the locker rang until it went to voicemail. Then it rang again. And again. But nobody was home to save Apex Logistics today. Dante adjusted the cuffs of his Italian suit jacket and leaned back in the leather booth at the Palms. It was the kind of restaurant where the menus did not have prices and the waiters whispered the specials like they were sharing state secrets. He was holding court with 3 of his college buddies, men who usually looked down on him, but were suddenly very interested now that he was promising to invest in their ventures. "Keep the champagne coming," Dante told the sommelier, with a lazy wave of his hand. "We are celebrating. My wife finally trimmed the fat at her company. We are moving liquid assets around. Big things are happening." He was lying, of course. He was spending money he thought was still sitting in the joint account, money he believed I was too scared to touch. He ordered the seafood tower, he ordered the Wagyu steaks, he ordered a bottle of scotch that cost more than my first car. He was playing the role of the tycoon he always pretended to be. When the check arrived on a silver tray, Dante did not even look at the total. He pulled out the heavy black American Express card, the one that had my name embossed on the front, and his name in smaller letters on the back, as an authorized user. He tossed it onto the tray with a smirk. "Get the gentlemen whatever they want for the road," he said magnanimously. His friends cheered. Dante beamed. He felt like a king. 5 minutes later, the waiter returned. He did not have the receipt. He was holding the black card between 2 fingers as if it were contaminated. He leaned down close to Dante's ear, but not close enough to hide his words from the table. "I apologize, sir, but the card was declined." The table went silent. Dante laughed a loud, nervous bark. "Do not be ridiculous. Run it again. The chip is probably dirty. It has a $50,000 limit." "We ran it 3 times, sir." the waiter said, his voice dropping to an icy professional monotone. The issuer signal is clear. Do not honor. Please provide another form of payment. Dante felt the heat creeping up his neck. He patted his pockets, pretending to look for another wallet he knew he did not have. He pulled out his phone and dialed the priority banking number. He put it on speaker because he was arrogant enough to think he could bully the bank into submission in front of an audience. "This is Dante King," he shouted into the phone. "Why is my card being rejected?" The automated voice was replaced by a human representative. "Mr. King, for security verification, I see you are listed as a secondary user. The primary account holder, Sasha King, removed your authorization at 9 this morning. All cards issued in your name have been deactivated." The silence at the table was deafening. Dante ended the call, his hand shaking. He looked up at his friends. The admiration in their eyes was gone, replaced by amusement and disgust. "I guess the liquidity dried up," one of them sneered, throwing a crumpled $20 bill onto the table. Dante sat there frozen as his friends stood up and walked out, leaving him alone with a $3,000 tab and a piece of plastic that was now worth less than the napkin on his lap. Courtney stood on the sidewalk in front of her boutique, watching her life crumble in real time. Two agents from the State Tax Revenue Department were systematically placing bright orange stickers on the glass windows, seized for non-payment. A locksmith was already drilling out the deadbolt. Passers-by were stopping to stare, some of them pulling out their phones to record the downfall of the woman who had spent years looking down her nose at them. "You cannot do this!" Courtney shrieked, grabbing the arm of the lead agent. "My brother-in-law transferred the money this morning. It is processing. This is a violation of my rights. I will sue you for every penny you have." The agent shook her off with a look of bored indifference. "Ma'am, we have heard that excuse for 6 months. The wire did not hit. The grace period ended at noon. You are trespassing on government property now. Step back or I will call the police." Courtney fumbled for her phone, her acrylic nails clicking frantically against the screen. She dialed Dante. He picked up on the first ring, breathing heavy like he had been running. "Where is the money, Dante?" she screamed into the phone, not caring who heard her. "They are locking the doors. They are taking the inventory. You said you handled it. You said the transfer was done." There was a silence on the other end. A long, terrible silence that made Courtney's stomach drop. "There is a problem," Dante said, finally, his voice sounding small and weak. "The bank rejected the transfer. Sasha found out. She locked the accounts, Courtney. She cut me off. The card was declined at lunch. I have nothing." Courtney felt the blood rush to her face. She turned her back on the tax agents, lowering her voice to a venomous hiss. "What do you mean you have nothing? You are the man of the house. You told me you controlled the finances. You told me she was just the worker bee, and you were the one pulling the strings." "She tricked me," Dante stammered. "She had a failsafe. I am trying to fix it, Court, but I need time." "Time does not pay the IRS, you idiot!" Courtney exploded. "I do not have time. I am losing everything right now because I trusted a loser who lives off his wife's paycheck." "Do not call me that," Dante said, finding a shred of dignity. "I am your family. I have supported you for years." "You are not family. You are a parasite," Courtney spat, letting the venom flow freely. "Do you think I let you hang around because I like your personality? You are boring, Dante. You are weak. The only reason we tolerate you at Sunday dinner is because Sasha pays for the catering. She is the golden goose, and you just killed her. If you cannot get that money, you are dead to me. Do not call me until you have fixed this, you useless leech." She hung up the phone and threw it into her designer bag. She looked at the padlocked door of her failed dream. She realized then that without Sasha's money, Dante was just a man with expensive taste and empty pockets. And she had bet on the wrong horse. The phone in the locker rang for the 17th time. My massage was over. I was wrapped in a plush white robe, sipping lemon water in the relaxation lounge. I picked up the phone. It was Bianca again. I let it ring twice just to make her sweat before sliding the answer button. Hello, Bianca. I kept my voice calm, almost bored. I assume you are calling to wish me luck in my future endeavors. Sasha, you need to come back right now. Bianca did not even say hello. Her voice was tight with panic, but she was trying to sound authoritative. There is a glitch in the system. Everything is locked. Fix it immediately, or I will have legal involved. I laughed soft and low. A glitch. That is cute. It is not a glitch, Bianca. It is a feature. The system is working exactly as I designed it. It requires a valid license to operate, and since I am no longer an employee, the license is void. You did this on purpose. You sabotaged us. I protected my intellectual property, I corrected, but I am a reasonable woman. If you need technical support, I am available for consultation. Consultation. You work for us. You fix this or else. I do not work for you. I said, checking my nails. You fired me, remember? I am a private contractor now, and my rates have gone up. Significantly. How much Bianca demanded. $5,000 an hour, I said. Minimum retainer of 100 hours, paid up front. Non-refundable. There was a choking sound on the other end. That is $500,000. You are insane. That is extortion. That is the price of doing business with the best, I replied. You said I was expensive before. Now you know what expensive really looks like. You have two choices, Bianca. You can pay me to turn the lights back on, or you can explain to the board why their logistics company cannot move a single box. I will sue you, Bianca shrieked. I will bury you in litigation so deep you will never see the sun again. I will destroy your reputation. You will never work in this industry again. Good luck with that, I said. My contract is ironclad. Marcus wrote it. You remember Marcus, right? The lawyer who never loses. But feel free to try. Every hour you spend talking to lawyers is another $1 million in lost revenue. The clock is ticking, Bianca. You are a monster, she screamed. I am a businesswoman, I countered. And you are bad for business. Call me when the check clears. I hung up the phone and blocked the number. I set the device down on the marble table. I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of jasmine and victory. They wanted to play hardball. They had no idea I was the one who built the stadium. Dante slammed the door of his leased BMW in the driveway. The restaurant manager had let him leave only after he left his Rolex as collateral. It was the most humiliating moment of his life, and he blamed me for every second of it. He marched up the front steps of the house ready to demand access to the safe. He shoved his key into the lock and twisted. It did not budge. He jiggled it. He pulled it out and tried again. Nothing. The lock was new. The brass finish was shiny and unfamiliar. She had changed the locks. Changed. In less than 8 hours, she had erased his access to his own home. This is my house, he screamed at the dark windows. You cannot lock me out, Sasha. I live here. Silence answered him. He kicked the door, leaving a scuff mark on the pristine white paint. He needed money. Courtney was calling him every 5 minutes asking for the transfer. His friends were texting him asking if he was broke. He needed to liquidate something fast. He remembered the diamond necklace in my vanity. He remembered the designer watches I had bought him for anniversaries. He could pawn them. He could get cash tonight. He ran around to the back patio. The French doors were locked tight. He grabbed a heavy stone garden gnome from the flower bed. With a grunt of exertion, he hurled it through the glass pane of the dining room window. The sound of shattering glass shattered the suburban quiet. He reached through the jagged hole, unlocked the latch, and pushed the door open. He stepped inside, crunching glass under his Italian loafers. He expected a siren. He expected a blaring alarm. There was only silence. He laughed, a dry, humorless sound. She changed the locks, but she forgot to set the alarm, he muttered. Stupid woman. He took the stairs 2 at a time, fueled by adrenaline and greed. He burst into the master bedroom. He went straight to the jewelry box on the dresser. He threw the lid open. Empty. He pulled out the drawers. Empty. He ran to the closet where the safe was hidden. The door was open. The interior was bare. She had taken everything. "You witch!" he screamed, throwing a perfume bottle against the wall. He turned, scanning the room for anything of value. The television. The art on the walls. He grabbed a bronze sculpture from the mantelpiece. It was heavy. It would fetch a few thousand. He turned to leave and froze. The room was suddenly bathed in flashing red and blue lights coming from the driveway. He ran to the window. 3 police cruisers were blocking his car. Officers were already moving toward the front door, guns drawn. The smart security system had not failed. It had triggered a silent duress alarm the moment the glass broke, sending a direct feed of the break-in to the local precinct. "Police department, come out with your hands up!" a voice boomed from a megaphone. Dante dropped the sculpture. It hit his foot, but he did not feel the pain. He only felt the cold realization that he was not the man of the house anymore. He was just an intruder. The holding cell smelled of stale coffee and bad decisions. Dante was sitting on a metal bench, his expensive suit covered in drywall dust from climbing through the window. When he saw me walking down the corridor with the desk sergeant, his face lit up with relief. He actually thought I was there to save him. He stood up, rushing to the bars like a dog waiting for a treat. "Thank God you are here," Dante said, his voice raspy. "Tell these idiots who I am. Tell them it is my house. They arrested me for breaking into my own home, Sasha. This is a lawsuit waiting to happen. Get me out of here and we can go home and forget this ever happened." I stopped 3 feet from the bars. I did not look at him with anger. I looked at him with the indifference of a stranger watching a bug on the sidewalk. "I cannot tell them it is your house, Dante," I said calmly, "because that would be a lie. You do not own the house. You signed the quitclaim deed 3 years ago when you needed $50,000 to bail Courtney out of her first bankruptcy. Remember, you traded your equity for cash?" Dante's grip tightened on the cold steel bars. His knuckles turned white. "That was a formality. We are married. What is yours is mine. That is the law." "Not according to the prenuptial agreement you signed," I replied, pulling a folded document from my purse. "You waived all rights to premarital assets and appreciation. The house is solely in my name. You are not a resident. Dante, you are a guest whose invitation has been revoked. Breaking a window to enter a property you do not own is a felony. It is called breaking and entering. And since I did not invite you in, you are also trespassing." "You cannot leave me here," he shouted, losing his composure. "I have a meeting tomorrow. I cannot go to jail. I am your husband." I stepped closer, sliding the paper through the bars. It was not bail money. It was a thick packet of legal documents stapled at the top. "You are my soon-to-be ex-husband," I corrected him. "And this is a temporary restraining order. The judge signed it electronically an hour ago, citing your violent outburst at the house and your threats regarding my finances. You are not allowed within 500 feet of me, my home or my place of business. Not that I have a place of business anymore, thanks to Bianca." Dante stared at the papers, trembling. His eyes darted from the legal text to my face, searching for the woman who used to fold his laundry and pay his credit card bills. She was gone. The desk sergeant stepped forward, dangling a set of keys. "You are not making bail tonight. Mr. King, the charges are serious, and with the restraining order on file, we have to hold you for arraignment until the morning judge comes in. Sit down." Dante slumped back onto the bench, defeated. The reality finally pierced his arrogance. He was spending the night in a cage. "Sasha, please," he whispered, desperate now. "Do not do this. I am sorry. I will fix it. Just get me out." I turned my back on him. The sound of my heels on the linoleum floor was the only answer he deserved. I walked out of the police station into the cool night air. I felt lighter. The parasite had been removed. Now it was time to deal with the host. I pulled out my phone and checked the time. It was barely dawn. The war was just beginning. The process server caught me at breakfast at the St. Regis. He handed me a thick envelope with the Apex Logistics logo stamped on the front. I did not need to open it to know what it was. Bianca was suing me for $20 million. The charges were impressive: sabotage of corporate assets, intellectual property theft, and my personal favorite, extortion in the first degree. She was trying to frame my consulting fee as a ransom demand. It was a bold strategy for a woman who did not even know how to reset her own email password. I walked into the courthouse 30 minutes early. I wore a tailored white suit that cost more than Dante's car. I wanted Bianca to see me. I wanted her to see that I was not losing sleep. I was not afraid. I was ready. The courtroom was cold. Bianca was already seated at the plaintiff table. She was flanked by 6 lawyers in gray suits. They looked like a pack of sharks smelling blood in the water. They had stacks of evidence boxes and charts prepared to show the judge how much money Apex was losing every minute. Bianca looked over her shoulder at me. She smirked. She mouthed the word jail. I sat down at the defense table. I placed a single slim leather folder on the wood. That was all I needed. Marcus sat beside me. He did not open a briefcase. He just crossed his legs and checked his watch. He knew what was in the folder. The judge entered. He was an older man with no patience for theatrics. Bianca's lead attorney stood up immediately. He was a man who liked the sound of his own voice. Your Honor, the defendant, Sasha King, has committed an act of digital terrorism against my client. She has maliciously encrypted vital company data and demanded an exorbitant ransom of $500,000 to release it. We are asking for an immediate emergency injunction to force her to unlock the system, and we are seeking maximum punitive damages. This is not just a business dispute. This is a hostage situation. Bianca nodded vigorously, dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue. She was playing the victim perfectly. She wanted the judge to see a helpless CEO being bullied by a disgruntled ex-employee. The judge turned to me. Ms. King, these are serious accusations. Do you have a defense against the charge that you destroyed company property? I stood up. I did not shout. I did not point fingers. I spoke with the calm precision of the woman who had built the very system they were arguing about. Your Honor, I object to the term destroyed. Nothing has been destroyed. The software simply stopped functioning because the license expired. As for the extortion charge, I am a private consultant. My rates are high because my expertise is rare. If Apex Logistics finds my fees unreasonable, they are free to hire someone else to write a new operating system. From scratch! Bianca jumped up, knocking her chair back. She planted a logic bomb. She is lying. She wants to bankrupt us. I turned to face her. I do not want to bankrupt you, Bianca. You are doing a fine job of that yourself. I just want what is mine. And today I am going to prove that you are suing me for taking back my own property. Your Honor, before you rule on the injunction, I would like to submit one piece of evidence. It is the original employment contract I signed 10 years ago. Not the digital copy stored in HR, which Bianca likely edited, but the physical wet ink original. I walked to the bench and placed the yellowed document on the judge's desk. The paper was thick and textured. It smelled of old filing cabinets and ironclad promises. The signature at the bottom was bold and sweeping. It belonged to the late founder, Elias Thorne, a man who valued talent more than corporate greed. Please direct your attention to Clause 17, Paragraph A, I said, my voice carrying to the back of the room. It clearly states that all software architecture algorithms and back-end code developed by Sasha King remain her sole intellectual property. Apex Logistics is granted a non-exclusive, non-transferable license to use said software. The license is contingent upon Ms. King's continued employment and may be revoked immediately upon termination, without cause. The judge adjusted his glasses. He read the paragraph once, then he read it again. He looked up at Bianca's legal team, who were frantically whispering among themselves. Counsel, were you aware of this addendum? The judge asked, his voice stern. Bianca's lead lawyer stood up, sweating. Your Honor, we have never seen this document. We believe it may be a fabrication. It is notarized, the judge interrupted, pointing to the stamp. By the state of Georgia, dated 10 years ago. Unless Ms. King has a time machine, this is valid. He turned his gaze to Bianca. She had shrunk in her seat, her face a mask of horror. Ms. Wallace, it appears you fired the owner of your operating system without reading the user manual first. The gavel banged. It sounded like a gunshot. Motion for emergency injunction denied. The defendant is within her contractual rights to revoke the license. Case dismissed pending further arbitration regarding the counterclaims. Bianca gasped. The sound was loud enough to be heard over the murmurs of the gallery. She looked at me with pure hatred. But I saw the fear underneath. She had gambled the entire company on a bluff, and I had just called it. I walked out of the courtroom. The heavy oak doors swung open to a wall of flashing lights. Reporters were waiting hungry for a quote regarding the logistics crisis that was now national news. Bianca tried to sneak out the side door, but they caught her. Ms. Wallace, is it true the company is at a standstill because you fired the creator of your software? Are you planning to resign? The questions hit her like stones. I stopped on the courthouse steps. I put on my sunglasses, blocking out the glare and the sight of Bianca's humiliation. No comment, I said to the press. I have a business to run. I walked to my car, leaving Bianca to drown in the flood she had started. She had lost the battle, but she did not know the war was about to get much worse. Courtney set up her ring light in the corner of the cheap motel room she had checked into with the last $50 on her credit card. She deliberately messed up her hair, pulling a few strands loose to frame her face in a halo of distress. She rubbed her eyes until they were red and puffy, satisfyingly pitiful. She hit the record button on TikTok and let the first tear fall before she even spoke. Hey guys, she whispered, her voice trembling for the camera. I did not want to bring this to social media. I really did not, but I have nowhere else to go and nobody else to listen to me. My family is on the streets tonight because of one person, my sister-in-law, Sasha King. She paused, wiping her nose with the sleeve of her oversized sweater, a calculated move to look vulnerable. You guys know her as this successful businesswoman, this girl boss inspiration, but you do not know the truth. Sasha has been bullying me for years. She hates me. She has always hated me. And today she finally showed her true colors. She threw her own husband out of their house. She locked his bank accounts. She left him with nothing. And when I tried to stand up for him, she laughed in my face. She told me that people like me do not deserve to be in her world. She called me white trash. Courtney sobbed, letting the lie hang in the digital air. She leaned closer to the camera, dropping her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. I think she hates me because I am white. I know I am not supposed to say that. I know she is a powerful black woman, and I am supposed to check my privilege. But how is it privilege when she has millions in the bank, and I am sleeping in a motel with broken locks? She used the N-word against herself just to mock me. She said she was taking back what her people were owed by taking everything from us. She is evil, guys. She is a monster hiding behind a diversity hire title. Please help us. We just need money for food. We need a lawyer to fight her. Someone has to stop her before she destroys anyone else. She ended the video and posted it with the hashtags Justice for Courtney and Toxic Family. Within an hour, the video had 50,000 views. By dinner time, it had crossed 1 million. The internet did what the internet does best. It reacted without facts. I watched the notifications roll in on my phone like a tsunami of hate. My inbox, which had been filled with job offers just yesterday, was now overflowing with death threats and racial slurs. People were calling me a reverse racist, a bully, an abuser. They were tagging the St. Regis, demanding they kick me out. They were flooding the review page of my consulting website with 1-star ratings, calling me the angry black woman who destroys families. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed watching Courtney's follower count climb. She had weaponized her tears perfectly. She had tapped into a narrative that made her the innocent victim, and me, the aggressive oppressor. It was a masterclass in manipulation. The public did not care about contracts or intellectual property, or the fact that Dante had stolen my money. They only saw a crying white woman and a black woman who refused to help her. And for the first time since this war began, I felt a flicker of genuine fear. The court of law required evidence. The court of public opinion only required a good performance. And Courtney was giving the performance of her life. Dante sat under the harsh studio lights of the Atlanta AM morning show, looking like a man who had just survived a war. His expensive suit was rumpled from a night in a holding cell, and he had deliberately refused the makeup artist. He wanted the world to see the bags under his eyes. He wanted them to see the bruise on his ego manifested in physical exhaustion. The host leaned in with practiced concern, her voice soft and inviting. "Tell us your side, Dante. The police report says you broke into your own home. Why would a man be driven to such desperate measures?" Dante took a shaky breath, looking directly into the camera lens. He was not the arrogant man who had screamed at me in our kitchen. He was playing a new character now. The broken husband. "I just wanted to get my clothes," he whispered. "I just wanted a change of underwear." She changed the locks without telling me. She froze our joint assets. I had no money for a hotel. I had nowhere to go. I broke that window because I was cold and I was scared. I never thought my wife would treat me like a criminal. The host nodded sympathetically, urging him to continue. "There are rumors of financial disputes. Your sister-in-law posted a very emotional video about being cut off. Is it true that Sasha controlled the finances?" "Controlled is too soft a word," Dante said, his voice gaining a little strength. "It was financial abuse, pure and simple. Sasha makes millions, but I had to ask permission to buy a cup of coffee. She tracked my location through my credit card usage. She audited my grocery receipts. I supported her for 10 years while she built that career. I cooked, I cleaned. I was her cheerleader. But the moment she became successful, she decided I was not good enough. She treated me like an employee she could fire." I watched the broadcast from the television in my hotel suite. My coffee went cold in my hand. He was projecting every single one of his insecurities onto me. He was describing himself, but painting my face on the portrait. The host pressed harder. "But why now, Dante? Why did she lock you out yesterday? Was there a specific incident?" Dante looked down at his hands, twisting his wedding ring. He hesitated for dramatic effect. "It was not just the money," he said softly. "I found messages. She has been seeing someone else, a client, someone with more money, someone who can give her the status she craves." When I confronted her about the affair, she snapped. She fired me from our marriage just like she got fired from her job. She wanted me gone so she could move him in. That is why she called the police. She is not a victim. She is a woman who traded her husband for an upgrade and destroyed my life to cover her tracks. The studio audience gasped. The host looked shocked. I just stared at the screen. He had crossed the line from manipulation to total fabrication. He had just given me the final piece of ammunition I needed. He thought he was winning the court of public opinion. He did not realize he had just committed slander on live television. I sat in the dim light of the hotel suite watching the chaos unfold on my laptop screen, like a scientist observing a particularly aggressive bacterial culture. The internet was burning my name in effigy. My social media feeds were a wasteland of hate comments and threats. Friends I had known for years were texting me tentative questions asking if what Dante said was true. I did not reply to anyone. I did not post a defense. I did not issue a statement. I simply hit the record button. I downloaded Courtney's TikTok video, archiving it securely on 3 different servers. I recorded Dante's television interview frame by frame, capturing every lie, every tear, every defamatory accusation. I took screenshots of the hate comments, tracing the most violent ones back to bot accounts that I suspected Bianca had paid for. Silence was my shield. Let them think I was hiding. Let them think I was broken. The more they talked, the more they incriminated themselves. While the world was busy hating me, I was busy listening. I had not just taken my personal files when I left the house, I had left something behind. A small, inconspicuous device plugged into the router in the living room. It was not just a modem. It was a listening post. I put on my noise-canceling headphones and tuned into the audio feed from my own living room. Dante had broken back in after being released. He was pacing the floor talking on the phone. "She is ruining us," he screamed into his mobile. "The bank still will not unlock the funds. And now the press is asking for proof of the affair. I need something, Bianca. You said you had dirt on her." I leaned forward, adjusting the volume. Bianca. So they were talking. The CEO who fired me and the husband who betrayed me were collaborating. "Calm down, Dante." Bianca's voice crackled through the speaker, thin and tinny. "I am working on it. We just need access to her personal email. If we can get into her cloud storage, we can plant evidence. We can forge emails. We can make it look like she was selling company secrets to a competitor. That will justify the firing and destroy her credibility in court." "I need the password," Dante said. "She changed everything." "Think," Bianca hissed. "What does she use? Her mother's name. Her first pet. You lived with her for 10 years. You have to know something." "I am trying," Dante yelled back. "But right now I am more worried about the mortgage. If I do not get access to cash soon, I am going to lose the house. And Courtney is going to kill me." I smiled in the darkness. They were eating each other alive. Panic was setting in. They were desperate, and desperate people made mistakes. They were about to hand me the keys to their own prison cells. I saved the audio file and labeled it Exhibit A. Then I opened my email and drafted a message to Marcus. It was time to introduce the world to the real Sasha King. I sat at the glass desk in the hotel suite, my finger hovering over the enter key. The internet was still burning with accusations against me. The hashtags were trending. People I had never met were calling for my head on a digital pike. It was time to put out the fire with a flood of truth. I logged into my anonymous X account, the one I had created years ago for market research. It had 0 followers, but that would change in about 5 minutes. I uploaded the first video file. It was time-stamped 3 days ago. The camera angle from the walk-in closet was crystal clear. It showed Courtney rummaging through my jewelry box. She held up my grandmother's pearl necklace to her neck, preening in the mirror. Then she slipped it into her pocket. The audio picked up her mutter. "She will never even notice. She has so much junk she probably forgot she owns this." I uploaded the second video. This one was from the living room, dated 2 weeks ago. Dante was on the phone with his mother. He was pacing a glass of my expensive scotch in his hand. "Mom, calm down," he was saying, his voice loud and arrogant. "I am working on it. Sasha is just a cow I am milking. Once the bonus hits in January, I am going to divorce her. I just need to secure the assets first." She is clueless. She thinks I actually love her. It is pathetic, really. Then came the final piece, the nuclear option. It was a clip from the kitchen security camera recorded the day I was fired. Courtney was leaning against the counter eating an apple. She was talking to Dante about my hair, about my family, about my culture, and then she said it. The word, the slur that cuts deeper than any knife. She said it casually, laughing as if it were a joke. "I cannot wait until we get rid of that N-word," she sneered. "Then this house can finally be classy." I typed a simple caption. "The truth has a funny way of coming out. Meet the real victims." I hit post. I waited. 1 minute, 5 minutes. Then my phone exploded. The notifications came in so fast the screen blurred. The video was being retweeted, shared, and stitched on TikTok. The same people who had been calling me a monster were now watching Courtney steal from me. They were listening to Dante call me a cash cow. And they were hearing the hate speech fall from Courtney's lips with terrifying ease. The tide did not just turn, it crashed. The hashtags changed instantly. Justice for Sasha began to trend. People were identifying Courtney's boutique. They were finding Dante's LinkedIn profile. The internet mob, which had been hunting me, suddenly realized they had been pointing their pitchforks in the wrong direction. And now they were angry. Very angry. I closed my laptop and poured myself a glass of water. The receipts had been delivered. Now I just had to watch them pay the bill. The internet did not just turn on them, it devoured them. Within an hour of my post going live, Courtney's boutique page was a digital graveyard. The reviews dropped from 4 stars to 1 star in minutes. People were not just leaving angry emojis. They were posting screenshots of her using the racial slur. They were tagging the brands she carried, demanding to know if they supported racism. One by one, the brands responded. "We are severing ties with immediate effect. We have zero tolerance for hate speech." Courtney watched her business evaporate in real time. She tried to go live again to apologize, but the comments moved so fast they were a blur of rage. She ended the stream in 30 seconds, sobbing for real this time. But nobody cared about her tears anymore. They knew they were fake. Dante was not spared. He sat in his hotel room staring at his laptop. He held a nominal position as a consultant for a mid-sized investment firm, mostly because of my connections. The email came through at 4 in the morning. "Effective immediately, your contract is terminated due to violation of our code of conduct regarding public reputational damage." He was fired. The job that barely paid for his car lease was gone. His LinkedIn profile was being flooded with comments linking to the video of him calling me a cash cow. His carefully curated image of the successful self-made man was shattered. He was exposed as exactly what he was, a leech. I watched the fallout from my suite, sipping my tea. Then the best part happened. They turned on each other. I had cloned Dante's phone to my laptop days ago, so I saw the messages flying back and forth. "You stupid woman," Dante texted Courtney. "Why did you have to use that word? You destroyed us. I could have spun the theft. I could have said it was a misunderstanding. But nobody defends a racist. You ruined my life." Courtney fired back instantly. "Do not blame me, you loser. You are the one who could not control your wife. You said she was stupid. You said she would never find out. You dragged me into this. I lost my store because of you. If you had just gotten the money like a real man, we would be fine. I hate you." I laughed out loud in the quiet room. The rats were not just fleeing the sinking ship, they were eating each other to stay afloat. They had lost their income, they had lost their reputations, and now they had lost their alliance. They were alone, broke, and hated by millions. I closed the laptop. The court of public opinion had delivered its verdict, guilty on all counts. But I was not done. I still had one more person to destroy. Bianca. And she was about to make a desperate mistake that would hand me the keys to the kingdom. By Wednesday afternoon, Apex Logistics was not just bleeding, it was hemorrhaging. The stock price had plummeted 40% in 48 hours. The trading floor suspended activity on the ticker symbol APX twice due to volatility. Every major news outlet was running stories about the supply chain crisis caused by the shutdown. Trucks were idling in distribution centers across the country filled with rotting produce and undelivered medical supplies. The board of directors had given Bianca a 24-hour ultimatum. Fix the system or face immediate termination and a potential criminal inquiry for negligence. Bianca sat in her corner office, the lights dim to hide her panic. She had tried everything. She had hired white hat hackers who failed to break my encryption. She had threatened me. She had sued me. Nothing worked. She was out of options and out of time. She pulled a burner phone from her desk drawer. It was the same phone she had used to coordinate her affair with Dante months ago. She dialed his number. Dante answered on the first ring. He was currently hiding in a budget hotel on the outskirts of the city, dodging calls from his landlord and the creditors Courtney had set on him. "What do you want, Bianca?" He snapped, his voice rough with lack of sleep. "I am a little busy trying not to become homeless." "Shut up and listen," Bianca hissed, gripping the phone. I need the code Dante, the master key, the override, whatever she calls it. You lived with her for 10 years. You must know where she keeps the physical backups. Sasha never trusts the cloud completely. Where is the hard drive? Dante laughed a bitter sound. She took everything, Bianca. The safe is empty. She cleaned us out. Think harder, Bianca commanded. Is there a storage unit? A safety deposit box? A server at the house she forgot? If you get me that source code, I will wire $500,000 to an offshore account in your name. You can start over. You can leave Courtney and her mess behind. The line went silent. I could practically hear the gears turning in Dante's desperate mind. $500,000 was his ticket out of the hell he had created. There is a server, he said slowly. She kept a personal server rack in the basement. It is hidden behind the wine cellar. She used it for off-site backups in case the main grid went down. She called it the black box. I bet she did not have time to dismantle the whole rig when she left. It is bolted to the floor. Can you get to it? Bianca asked, her voice trembling with hope. I know the passcode to the keypad on the cellar door, Dante said. It is her grandmother's birthday. She never changes it. But the house is locked down. The police are watching. I will handle the police, Bianca said. I have a contact in private security who can disable the perimeter alarm for 10 minutes. You just need to get inside, get the drive and get out. Bring it to me at the office tonight. Do we have a deal? I want half the money up front, Dante demanded. Done. Meet me at the back entrance at midnight. Do not fail me, Dante. This is the only life raft we have left. I sat in my hotel suite, listening to the call through the cloned phone. I took a sip of my wine. They were so predictable. They thought they were being clever. They thought they had found a loophole. They had no idea that the black box in the basement was not a backup. It was a trap, and they were about to walk right into it. I sat in the darkness of the penthouse suite, illuminated only by the ghostly blue glow of my iPad screen. On the display, a shadow moved across the manicured lawn of the house I had bought and paid for. It was Dante. He looked like a thief in a bad movie, wearing a black hoodie that did not hide his distinctively arrogant walk. He did not break a window this time. He held a small device against the electronic lock on the back door. The light turned green. Bianca must have given him a high-end signal spoofer. She really was desperate. I sipped my wine and watched. My finger hovered over the panic button on the security app. One tap and the silent alarm would summon the police. One tap and he would be back in a cell for violating the restraining order. It was tempting, but I did not press it. A trap only works if you let the rat take the cheese. I wanted him to feel the weight of victory before I crushed him with the reality of defeat. I switched camera feeds, following him as he crept through the kitchen and down the basement stairs. The night vision camera in the wine cellar picked him up clearly. He pushed aside the heavy oak rack holding my vintage Bordeaux collection bottles he had never appreciated because they did not have flashy labels. Behind the rack was a reinforced steel door. He punched in the code, 0812. My grandmother's birthday. He paused for a second, a smug grin spreading across his face. He thought he was a genius for remembering. He had no idea that I knew he would remember. He had no idea that I had programmed the system to accept that specific code only for tonight. The door hissed open. Inside the server room, the air was cool and filled with the hum of cooling fans. Blue lights blinked rhythmically on the black tower in the center of the room. It looked impressive. It looked like the brain of a multi-million-dollar operation. In reality, it was a honeypot, a decoy server I had set up years ago for this exact scenario. It was isolated from the main network. It contained nothing of value except for one specific hard drive labeled Master Override in bright red letters. Dante's eyes widened. He rushed forward. He did not check for traps. He did not check for backups. He just ripped the drive out of the bay. He shoved it into his jacket pocket, patting it like it was a stack of gold bars. Take it, Dante, I whispered to the empty hotel room. Take your severance package." He turned and ran back up the stairs. I watched him exit the house and sprint to his car. I took another sip of wine. He was holding a digital grenade, and he was running straight to Bianca to pull the pin. I closed the app. The show was over for now. The real fireworks would start when they plugged that drive in. Bianca was pacing the length of the executive server room, her heels clicking a nervous staccato rhythm on the raised floor tiles. She checked her Cartier watch for the 10th time in a minute. The building was silent around her, a tomb built of glass and steel awaiting resurrection when the service elevator dinged. She spun around, her eyes wide and hungry. Dante stepped out, pulling the hood of his sweatshirt back to reveal a face flushed with adrenaline and triumph. He held the red hard drive aloft like a trophy. "You actually did it," Bianca breathed. She did not reach for the drive first. She reached for him. She grabbed the lapels of his jacket and pulled him into a bruising kiss. It was not the kiss of a business partner thanking a contractor. It was the familiar possessive kiss of a lover who had been waiting in the shadows for far too long. Dante responded instantly, dropping the drive onto a nearby console to wrap his arms around her waist. "I told you I would handle it," he murmured against her neck. "I told you I would take care of us, just like I have for the last 18 months. I knew I picked the right brother," Bianca said, pulling back to look at him with predatory affection. Sasha always thought she was the smart one. She thought she was the prize she never realized she was. "Just the placeholder keeping my seat warm while we waited for the right moment to strike." Dante laughed, picking up the drive again. She really thought I was staying late at the office all those nights. She never questioned why I volunteered to coordinate the logistics for the company retreat. It is almost sad how easy it was to fool her. She was so busy building this empire. She did not notice we were building a life right under her nose. "Let us finish this," Bianca said, her eyes gleaming. She took the drive and walked to the main terminal. "This is it, Dante. Once we reboot the system with the master key, the encryption will dissolve. We will have full control. The board will have to bow down to me, and with the money we save on her contract, we can finally stop hiding. We can buy that house in the Hamptons. We can be us." She plugged the drive into the port. The hum of the servers seemed to deepen. The screen flickered from black to a bright, promising blue. A progress bar appeared in the center of the monitors, loading rapidly. Green text scrolled across the screen. "System restore initiated, override protocol detected. Access granted." They stood there, bathed in the blue light, holding hands like a twisted power couple watching their future load, 1% at a time. "See," Dante said, squeezing her hand. "She is not a genius, Bianca. She is just a woman who works too hard, and she left the front door open for the people she trusted. We won, baby. We actually won." The progress bar hit 99%. Bianca let out a sigh of relief, leaning her head on Dante's shoulder. They were so busy congratulating themselves on their brilliance, so busy planning how to spend my money and live in my house, that they did not notice the text on the screen change color. It shifted from a soothing green to a violent, flashing red. The progress bar froze. The hum of the servers pitched up into a high whine. "What is happening?" Dante asked, his smile faltering. "Why did it stop?" Bianca stepped forward, frowning. "Just give it a second. It is processing the handshake. It has to verify the key. Wait, what does that say?" She squinted at the new text appearing on the screen. Her face went pale. The blue light of the room was suddenly replaced by the harsh red emergency lighting that strobed in time with a new sound. A low, rhythmic alarm that signaled a catastrophic system failure. The screen did not say "access granted" anymore. It displayed a single line of text that I had programmed for this exact moment, for these exact people. "Trojan horse deployed. Say cheese." The red text on the screen did not just sit there. It began to scroll faster and faster until it was a blur of code. The progress bar that had promised them salvation was replaced by a new one labeled Evidence Upload to Federal Bureau of Investigation. Bianca screamed a sound of pure, primal terror. She lunged for the hard drive, trying to rip it out of the port, expecting it to stop the flow of information. But I had anticipated that, the moment the drive was inserted. The virus had already latched onto the root directory. It was not running from the drive anymore. It was running from the core of the mainframe, and it was hungry. "What is it doing?" Dante yelled, backing away from the console as if it were radioactive. "Why does it say FBI?" "Sasha, what did you do?" I watched on my iPad, sipping my wine as the screen in the server room listed the files being extracted. It was beautiful. It was a greatest hits collection of their crimes. Folder after folder opened and copied itself into the outgoing email attachment. Cayman Island Shell Corp 4. Bianca's personal slush fund. Embezzlement scheme. Alpha. And most importantly, the ledger titled Dante Consulting Fees, which showed every single dollar he had helped her launder over the last 18 months. "You idiot!" Bianca shrieked, slapping Dante across the face. "You led us right into a trap. This is not an override key, it is a confession. It is copying the shadow books. It is copying everything we hid." "Pull the plug, Dante," shouted, scrambling under the desk toward the power strip. "Cut the power, kill it before it sends—" "It is too late," Bianca whispered, staring at her phone, which had just buzzed on the table. The color drained from her face, leaving her looking like a wax statue melting under the heat. She picked up the phone with trembling fingers. A notification had just popped up on her screen. It was an automated email alert from the company server. The subject line read, "Whistleblower Disclosure, Financial Misconduct and Corporate Espionage at APX Logistics." The recipients list was long and devastating. It included the entire board of directors, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the local FBI field office, and for good measure, every single employee in the company. "It sent," Bianca whispered, dropping the phone. "It sent everything. The fake invoices, the wire transfers, the emails where we planned to frame her. It is all gone. It is in the cloud, Dante. We are not just fired. We are going to federal prison." Dante scrambled out from under the desk, his suit covered in dust, again. His face a mask of disbelief. He looked at the screen where a final message now pulsed in cheerful green letters. "Upload complete, have a nice day." He turned to Bianca, his eyes wide with panic. "We have to run. We have to go now. We can get to the airport. I have a little cash stashed. Run where you moron." Bianca spat, sinking to the floor. "The FBI probably has a warrant being printed right now. You led us right to the slaughterhouse. You and your ex-wife. She played us, Dante. She played us like a fiddle, and we danced right off the cliff." I closed the app on my tablet. The digital evidence was secure. The authorities had the files. The board had the proof. The silence in the server room was heavy with the weight of ending lives. I poured the rest of the wine down the sink. I did not need to drink anymore. The taste of victory was sweet enough. The virus did not stop at the FBI servers. It broadcast the truth to every monitor in the Apex building. One moment the office was in a panic about logistics. The next it was a gallery of corruption. The 60-inch monitors in the trading pit, which usually displayed shipping routes and inspirational quotes, flickered and changed. They began cycling through PDFs of wire transfers. Invoice number 402. Recipient Dante King. Service provided consulting. Amount $50,000. Kevin, the senior analyst, stood up from his desk. He walked to the center of the room and pointed. "Look at the dates," he shouted. "She was paying him while we were laying off the warehouse staff. She was stealing our bonuses to pay her boyfriend." The murmur of confusion turned into a roar of rage. Employees grabbed their phones not to call clients but to take pictures. Within minutes, the evidence of Bianca's embezzlement was trending on Twitter alongside the hashtag #ApexFraud. I watched the stock ticker on my laptop screen. It was a beautiful free fall. APX opened at $40 a share. By 10 in the morning, it was trading at 12. By noon, it was a penny stock. The New York Stock Exchange triggered a trading halt due to volatility, but the damage was irreversible. The company's valuation evaporated like water on hot pavement. Billions of dollars in market cap wiped out in hours. Bianca's phone was ringing nonstop. It was not Amazon this time. It was the lead investor from the venture capital firm that backed the company. I could imagine the conversation. They were not calling to ask for a status update. They were calling to trigger the clawback clauses. They were pulling their funding. They were freezing the credit lines. Apex Logistics was not just broke, it was insolvent. Dante stood in the server room staring at his phone. His face was gray. "My portfolio," he whispered. "I put everything in Apex stock. You told me to buy the dip, Bianca. You said we would be rich, now it is worth nothing." He had gambled his stolen $50,000 on Bianca's ability to win. He had bet against me, and he had lost every single cent. The building groaned around them not from structural failure, but from the weight of 1,000 employees realizing their pensions were gone because of two greedy people. The empire had fallen, and I was the one holding the remote control. The boardroom on the 45th floor was usually a place of polite nods and soft handshakes. Today it felt like an execution chamber. The air conditioning was set to a freezing temperature, but Bianca was sweating through her silk blouse. She stood at the head of the long mahogany table. 12 pairs of eyes stared back at her. These were the board members. Men and women who controlled billions of dollars. They were not smiling. There were no water bottles on the table. There were no notepads. There was only a single speakerphone in the center of the table connected to the legal team in New York. Bianca gripped the back of her leather chair, her knuckles white. She decided to attack. It was the only move she had left. "This is a coordinated cyber-terrorist attack," she announced, her voice shrill and echoing in the silent room. "Sasha King has illegally breached our servers. She has planted fabricated documents to discredit the leadership of this company during a crisis. I have already contacted the authorities. We need to issue a statement immediately denying the validity of these files. We need to sue her for defamation. We need to control the narrative before the stock drops any further." She paused, waiting for a nod of agreement, waiting for someone to back her up. Nobody moved. James Sterling, the chairman of the board, leaned forward. He was 70 years old and had seen companies rise and fall. He looked at Bianca with a mixture of pity and disgust. He did not look at the papers in front of him. He knew them by heart. "Sit down," Bianca Sterling said. His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of a judge passing sentence. "I will not sit down!" Bianca snapped, her desperation leaking through. "We are under attack. You are letting a disgruntled ex-employee destroy us. These files are fake. The accounting records are manipulated. I never authorized those transfers to Dante King. Sasha hacked my signature. She is a coder, James. She can make a computer do anything." Sterling pressed a button on the speakerphone. "Mr. Henderson, please read the forensic summary." A disembodied voice filled the room. "We have cross-referenced the leaked ledgers with the bank's transaction history. The wire transfers are authentic. The IP addresses used to authorize the payments match the device currently in Ms. Wallace's possession. The timestamps correspond to dates when Ms. Wallace was physically present in the office. Furthermore, the metadata shows that the secondary approval was granted by Dante King using credentials issued by Ms. Wallace personally. The files are not fabricated. They are accurate records of embezzlement totaling $4.2 million. Bianca felt the room spin. The floor seemed to tilt beneath her feet. They had checked the bank. They knew. "This is a setup," she stammered, backing away from the table. "She planted the evidence on my computer. She is framing me." "Stop talking," Bianca Sterling said, standing up. "It is not a hack. The virus Sasha King released did not write the checks. It simply showed us where the money went. You are not a victim of cybercrime. You are the perpetrator of corporate fraud." As of this moment, you are stripped of your title as CEO. Your stock options are frozen, and security is waiting outside to escort you not to your car, but to the federal agents waiting in the lobby. Bianca looked at the heavy wooden doors. She looked back at the board members. They were already gathering their things, turning their backs on her. She realized then that she was not fighting for her job anymore. She was fighting for her freedom, and she had already lost. The heavy double doors of the boardroom swung open with a slow, deliberate weight, pushing back against the sterile air of the room. All 12 heads turned simultaneously. Bianca stopped struggling against the security guards, her mouth falling open in a silent scream of disbelief. I stepped across the threshold. I was not wearing the tech support uniform they were used to seeing me in. I was wearing a charcoal suit that whispered authority, and I held a thin leather binder in my hand. "Ms. King Chairman," Sterling said, standing up, his face flushing with indignation. "You have a lot of nerve coming here. The police are on their way. You are trespassing on private property." I walked to the empty chair at the opposite end of the table, the chair that belonged to the CEO. I placed my binder on the table and rested my hands on the leather, looking at each of them in turn. "I am not trespassing, Mr. Sterling," I said, my voice calm and filling the room. "I am attending the shareholder meeting." Bianca let out a hysterical laugh. "She is insane. Get her out of here. She is a criminal. She destroyed this company." I ignored her. I looked directly at Sterling. "Actually, I am saving this company. Or rather, I am salvaging what is left of it, after you let your CEO run it into the ground." I motioned to the binder. "Open it." Sterling hesitated, looking at the security guards as if debating whether to have me tackled. Then curiosity won. He reached for the binder and flipped it open. His eyes scanned the first page. The color drained from his face faster than the stock price had dropped this morning. He looked up at me, his mouth moving but no sound coming out. "Read it out loud," I said softly, "so everyone can hear." Sterling cleared his throat, his hands trembling. "This is a stock purchase agreement executed 10 minutes ago. It certifies the acquisition of 51% of all outstanding common stock of Apex Logistics by the King Family Trust." The room erupted. Everyone started shouting at once. The lawyers on the speakerphone were yelling about trading halts and regulatory caps. Bianca stopped struggling and slumped against the wall, sliding down until she hit the floor. "Silence," I commanded. The room went quiet instantly. You all watched the ticker drop. You saw the panic selling. When the stock hit 12 cents a share, you were all busy trying to sell your own holdings to save your personal fortunes. I was busy buying. I bought the dip, Mr. Sterling. I bought every single panic-sold share until I owned the majority interest. The software license issue is resolved because I now own the company that licenses it. I turned to look at Bianca. She looked small and broken, sitting on the expensive carpet. "You fired an employee." "Bianca," I said, walking over to stand above her. "But you forgot that in the free market cash is king. I am not your victim anymore. I am your boss. And my first act as majority shareholder is to accept your termination for cause. Get her out of my building." The security guards hoisted Bianca to her feet. She did not fight them this time. She looked at me with hollow, dead eyes as they dragged her out the door. I turned back to the table. The board members were staring at me with a mixture of fear and awe. They knew their jobs were now in my hands. "Shall we begin?" I asked, sitting down in the CEO's chair. "I believe we have a lot of work to do to clean up this mess." The leather of the CEO chair was still warm from Bianca's body, but it felt different now. It felt permanent. I looked down the long mahogany table at the faces of the 12 men who had silently condoned my mistreatment for years. They were not looking at me with dismissal anymore. They were looking at me with terror. That is the thing about money. It changes the way people see you faster than any plastic surgery. Bianca was still struggling near the door. She had managed to shake off one of the security guards for a moment. She stood there, panting, her hair a mess, her eyes wild. She looked like a cornered animal, realizing the trap had no exit. "You cannot do this!" she screamed, her voice cracking and echoing off the glass walls. "This is a hostile takeover. It is illegal. I am still the CEO until the regulatory filing goes through. You cannot just walk in here and take my company." I swiveled the chair slowly. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. The absolute silence in the room amplified every word I spoke. "It is not your company, Bianca. It never was. You were just the caretaker, and you did a terrible job. You treated this business like your personal piggy bank. You treated your employees like disposable parts, and you treated me like an enemy when I was the only asset keeping you afloat." I stood up and walked around the table, closing the distance between us. I wanted her to see the eyes of the woman she had underestimated. I wanted her to remember this moment for the next 10 years. "You cited budget cuts when you let me go," I said softly. "You said my salary was a liability. Let us look at the liabilities now. The stock is worthless. The reputation of the brand is in tatters, and the federal government has a complete copy of your illegal ledgers. So in the interest of saving the company, I am making an executive decision. Bianca Wallace, you are fired, effective immediately. And unlike me, you will not be getting a severance package." Bianca opened her mouth to scream again, but the heavy double doors burst open behind her. This time it was not private security. 6 agents in blue windbreakers with yellow bold letters emblazoned on the back swarmed into the room. They moved with a speed and precision that sucked the air out of the space. Federal agents, a deep voice boomed, "Nobody move." The lead agent walked straight to Bianca. He did not ask who she was. He knew. He pulled a pair of steel handcuffs from his belt. The sound of them ratcheting shut around Bianca's wrists echoed like a gunshot in the silent boardroom. "Bianca Wallace, you are under arrest for wire fraud, embezzlement, and theft of trade secrets," the agent recited, his voice devoid of emotion. "We also have a warrant for the seizure of your electronic devices and personal assets. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you." Bianca looked at me. For the first time, there was no anger in her eyes, only pure, unadulterated fear. She looked at the board members begging for help, but they all looked away, studying the grain of the wood table or checking their watches. She was toxic waste, and nobody wanted to be contaminated. "Please," she whispered, tears finally spilling over, running down her cheeks. "Sasha, please, tell them it was a mistake. We were friends, Sasha. Help me." I looked at her, one last time. I thought about the red screens. I thought about Dante breaking into my house. I thought about the hate she had fueled against me online. "We were never friends, Bianca," I said, turning my back on her to face my new board of directors. "Friends do not steal from each other. Take her away." The agents marched her out. The doors swung shut, cutting off her sobbing. The room was quiet again. I sat back down at the head of the table. I smoothed my suit jacket and picked up the binder. "Now," I said to the stunned room, "let us talk about the future." Dante paced the marble floor of the Apex Logistics lobby, wearing a path into the expensive rug. He checked his watch for the 20th time in 5 minutes. He was sweating despite the aggressive air conditioning. He was not nervous about the crime he had just committed. He was nervous about the payout. He had mentally spent the $500,000 10 times over. He pictured the first-class ticket to Miami. He pictured the new car. He pictured leaving Courtney and her debts behind to rot in Atlanta. He was so lost in his fantasy of redemption that he did not notice the heavy silence falling over the bustling lobby. The security desk fell quiet. The receptionist stopped typing. The revolving doors seemed to freeze. Then the elevator chime pierced the air. It was a cheerful sound that heralded the end of his life. The doors slid open, revealing a tableau that made Dante's knees buckle. Bianca was not walking out with a briefcase full of cash. She was being marched out by federal agents, her hands cuffed behind her back, her mascara running down her cheeks like war paint. Dante froze. He tried to make himself small. He tried to blend into the potted fern next to the seating area. Maybe they would not see him. Maybe they were only here for her. He held his breath as the procession moved across the lobby. Bianca's eyes were glued to the floor, but one of the agents scanned the room with the precision of a predator. "There he is," the agent said, pointing a gloved finger straight at the potted fern. "Secure him." Dante scrambled backward, knocking over a heavy ceramic vase. It shattered on the floor, a loud crash that drew every eye in the building. He put his hands up, forcing a tremble into his voice, attempting to play the confused bystander. "Whoa, wait a minute," he stammered, backing away. "I am just waiting for a ride. I do not work here. You have the wrong guy." The agents did not slow down. They moved on him like a coordinated wave, slamming him against the marble wall. The impact knocked the wind out of him. He felt the cold steel of handcuffs ratcheting tight around his wrists, hurting his delicate skin. "Dante King, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, money laundering and aiding and abetting corporate espionage," the agent recited, ripping the phone from Dante's pocket. "We have the ledger, Dante. We have the emails. You laundered $4 million through a shell company registered in your name. You are not a bystander. You are the bagman." "No," Dante screamed, struggling against the grip. "It was her!" He pointed his chin at Bianca, who was being shoved into a waiting black SUV. "It was all her idea. She made me do it. I am just a consultant. I did not know where the money came from." "Tell it to the judge," the agent said, spinning him around to march him toward the door. Then Dante saw me. I was standing on the mezzanine level, looking down at the lobby through the glass railing. I stood still, my face impassive, watching the man who had promised to love and cherish me, being dragged away like common trash. "Sasha!" he screamed, his voice breaking into a high-pitched wail of desperation. "Sasha, tell them I am your husband. You cannot let them take me. We are married, Sasha. Spousal privilege. You have to help me. I am family." He thrashed, trying to look up at me, trying to catch my eye, trying to find a shred of the woman who used to forgive him for everything. "Baby, please," he sobbed, losing all dignity in front of the employees he used to look down on. "I am sorry, I will fix it. Just call your lawyer. Do not let them put me in a cage." "Sasha, I love you." I looked down at him. I did not speak. I did not wave. I simply turned around and walked back toward the boardroom. The sound of his screaming followed me, fading only when the heavy glass doors of the building finally swung shut behind him. He was right about one thing. We were married, but he forgot that a marriage certificate is not a get-out-of-jail-free card. It is just a contract, and he had breached it long ago. "Officer, wait!" I called out. The two federal agents paused near the revolving doors, holding Dante between them like a sack of unwanted mail. The lobby was deadly silent. Every receptionist, every security guard, and every lingering client was watching. I walked down the grand staircase, slowly, my heels clicking on the marble with a rhythm that sounded like a countdown. Dante saw me coming, and his face crumpled with relief. He actually smiled. It was a pathetic, wobbling smile of a man who thought he had just been pardoned. "Thank God," he breathed, his voice wet with tears and sweat. "I knew it. I knew you would not let them take me." "Sasha, tell them. Explain to them that this is all a misunderstanding. We can fix this, baby. We can pay them back. Just get these cuffs off me." I stopped exactly 1 foot in front of him. I did not touch him. I did not look at the agents. I looked straight into Dante's eyes, searching for the man I had married 10 years ago. I looked for the charm. I looked for the kindness. I found nothing, just a hollow shell built of greed and lies. I reached into my leather tote bag. My hand closed around the thick envelope I had been carrying since the morning I met with Marcus. I pulled it out. The paper was crisp and white, contrasting sharply with Dante's rumpled gray suit. I did not hand it to him gently. I slapped the envelope against his chest, hard enough to make a sound. "You are served, Dante," I said, my voice ice cold. He looked down at the papers pinned between his chest and his cuffed hands, trying to read the bold text through his tears. "What is this?" he stammered. "Is this a lawyer? Is this bail money?" "It is a petition for immediate dissolution of marriage," I said, savoring the confusion on his face. "And it is a notice of forfeiture regarding the prenuptial agreement." "Do you remember the prenup, Dante? The one you laughed about signing because you said we would never need it?" He shook his head, eyes widening. "Sasha? No, not now, we can talk about this later." "There is no later," I interrupted, my voice cutting through his panic. Clause 9 Section C specifically states that in the event of proven adultery or commission of a felony involving marital assets, the offending party forfeits all claims to alimony, spousal support, and equitable distribution of property. I leaned in closer, so only he could hear the final nail in his coffin. "I have the videos, Dante. I have the tapes of you and Bianca. I have the wire transfers. You breached the contract in every way possible." Dante's face went slack. The color drained away, leaving him looking like a corpse. The realization hit him harder than the arrest. He could handle jail if he knew there was a pot of gold waiting for him on the outside. But I had just burned the pot. "You cannot do this," he whispered, his voice trembling with genuine horror. "I have nothing, Sasha. You cannot leave me with nothing. I am your husband." I stepped back, signaling the agents to continue dragging him out. "You are not my husband," I said loud enough for the entire lobby to hear. "You are a liability, and I just liquidated you. You leave this marriage exactly how you entered it." Dante, empty-handed. "Take him away," I told the agents, turning my back on him. "Sasha," he screamed as the doors began to spin. "Sasha, please." I did not look back. I did not flinch. I walked toward the elevator that would take me to the penthouse office. My office. The sound of his begging faded as the heavy glass doors sealed shut behind him. I took a deep breath. The air in the lobby tasted different. It tasted clean. It tasted like freedom. I pressed the button for the top floor. The baggage was gone. It was time to fly. The downfall of Courtney King was not a sudden explosion like the end of Apex Logistics. It was a slow, agonizing bleed that stripped away her dignity, layer by layer. The internet moved on to the next scandal within a week, but the damage left behind was permanent. Her boutique was boarded up, the windows still covered in the spray paint from the protests that had erupted after her video went viral. The landlord broke her lease, citing a clause about moral turpitude, and she was evicted within 48 hours. She tried to sell her inventory online, but nobody wanted to buy clothes from a woman who had become the face of casual racism. She ended up dumping boxes of designer knockoffs into a donation bin in a parking lot at 3 in the morning just to get rid of the reminders of her failed ambition. The financial ruin was absolute. Without Dante's stolen money to prop her up, the debt swallowed her whole. The bank foreclosed on her condo. The repo man came for her G-Wagon while she was at a pawn shop trying to get cash for a bracelet that turned out to be gold-plated. She stood on the sidewalk watching her car get towed away, screaming at the driver, until her voice gave out, but he did not even look at her. She was not a VIP anymore. She was just another broke woman in Atlanta with a bad attitude and zero credit. She moved into a motel, then a shelter, then finally a cramped studio apartment in a neighborhood she used to make fun of. She needed a job. Any job. But every time she applied somewhere, the manager would Google her name and the interview would end immediately. Desperation has a way of lowering standards. 2 months after the scandal, Courtney found herself standing in front of a dirty mirror, adjusting a bright green polyester vest that smelled faintly of onions and old bleach. She was the newest cashier at Super Save, a discount grocery store located deep in the heart of the very community she had insulted. The irony was suffocating. Every day she had to drive her beat-up used sedan to a neighborhood where she was the minority. She had to smile at people she had once looked down on. She had to bag their groceries and ask them if they had coupons. The store was a sensory nightmare for a woman who used to spend her afternoons sipping champagne at the St. Regis. The fluorescent lights buzzed constantly, giving her a migraine that never went away. The floor was always sticky. The air smelled of overripe fruit and cleaning chemicals. Courtney stood at register 4, her feet throbbing in cheap sneakers. She scanned a bag of frozen chicken wings, then a carton of milk, then a bag of rice. Beep, beep, beep. The sound was the soundtrack of her new life. A line of customers stretched back into the aisles. They were impatient, they were tired, and they did not care about her problems. A woman at the front of the line tapped her long acrylic nails on the belt. "Girl, are you going to scan that, or just stare at it?" the woman asked, snapping her gum. "I have to pick up my kids. Move it." Courtney felt the familiar heat of anger rising in her chest. The old Courtney would have snapped back. The old Courtney would have demanded to speak to a manager. But the new Courtney knew better. She swallowed her pride, which tasted like bile, and grabbed the item. "I am going as fast as I can," she muttered, keeping her eyes down. "You are moving like molasses in January," the woman retorted. "Maybe if you stopped pouting and did your job, we would be out of here." Courtney's hands shook as she swiped the item. She wanted to scream. She wanted to throw the register on the floor. But she needed this paycheck. She needed the $12 an hour just to keep the lights on in her studio. "Hey, new girl," a voice boomed from the manager's booth. Courtney flinched. It was Ms. Letitia, the shift manager. Letitia was a large, formidable woman who ran the store with military precision. She had seen the viral video. She knew exactly who Courtney was. And she made it her personal mission to ensure Courtney learned humility the hard way. Ms. Letitia walked over, her arms crossed over her chest. She looked at Courtney's messy station. She looked at the line of angry customers. She shook her head with a look of pure disdain. "Look at this mess," Letitia said loud enough for the customers to hear. "You have voided items sitting on the belt. You are not bagging the eggs separate. How many times do I have to teach you the basics? I thought you were supposed to be some kind of business owner. Can you not even run a simple cash register?" "I am trying," Courtney whispered, her face burning red. "The machine is sticking." "The machine is fine," Letitia snapped. "The operator is the problem. You think you are too good to be here, do you not? You think this is beneath you. Well, let me tell you something, princess. You are lucky I hired you. Nobody else would touch you with a 10-foot pole. So you better fix your face and get those lines moving, or you can go back to the shelter." Courtney looked up. She saw the customers watching her. She saw the judgment in their eyes. But it was not the envy she used to crave. It was pity. They did not hate her. They just thought she was pathetic. A broken woman being scolded like a child in a discount supermarket. "I am sorry," Ms. Letitia Courtney said, her voice barely audible. "I will do better." Letitia laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "You better. Now clean up spill on aisle 3. Someone dropped a jar of pickles. And do not use the good mop. Use the old one." Courtney stepped away from the register. She walked to the back closet to get the mop. As she dragged the bucket across the linoleum floor, she caught a glimpse of herself in the security mirror. Her hair was frizzy. Her eyes were dull. She looked 10 years older. She realized then that Sasha had not just defeated her. Sasha had erased her. Courtney was gone. There was only the girl in the green vest mopping up pickle juice while the world moved on without her. The view from the CEO's office on the 45th floor was breathtaking. From here, the cars looked like toys, and the people were invisible specks. It was a perspective that suited my new reality. I was signing the final acquisition papers for a fleet of electric trucks when my assistant buzzed in. Her voice was hesitant. "Ms. King, there is a woman here to see you. She says she is your mother-in-law. She does not have an appointment, but she refuses to leave. She is causing a scene in the lobby." I paused, my pen hovering over the paper. Beatrice King, the woman who had made my life a quiet hell for a decade. She was the one who inspected my dusting when I first married Dante. She was the one who told me that my career was a cute hobby, but my real job was to give her grandchildren. She was the matriarch who had sat at the head of the table smiling while her children spent my money. Let her in, I said. Send her up. 10 minutes later, the heavy doors opened. Beatrice walked in, but she was not the woman I remembered. The Beatrice of the past was an iron lady wrapped in Chanel suits and condescension. This woman was a ghost. Her gray hair was pulled back in a messy bun. Her coat was old and missing a button. Her face was etched with the deep lines of a mother who had watched her dynasty crumble on national television. She looked small. She looked defeated. She stopped in the middle of the room, clutching her purse like a shield. She looked at me sitting behind the massive desk that used to belong to Bianca. She looked at the expensive art on the walls. She looked at the power that radiated from every corner of the room. "Sasha," she whispered. Her voice was trembling. "Hello, Beatrice," I said. I did not stand up. I did not offer her a seat. I did not offer her water. I simply waited. She took a few shaky steps forward. "Sasha, please. I know you are angry. I know Dante made mistakes. I know Courtney was foolish. But they are suffering, Sasha. Dante is in federal holding. He is being beaten. He is scared. He calls me every day crying. He says he is sorry. He says he loves you." I leaned back in my chair, my face impassive. "He does not love me, Beatrice. He misses his ATM. There is a difference." Beatrice flinched as if I had slapped her. She stepped closer, her eyes filling with tears. "He is your husband. You took vows, for better or for worse. Is this not the worst? He needs you now more than ever. And Courtney, my poor Courtney. She is working in a supermarket, Sasha. She is being humiliated every day. She has lost her home. She has lost her spirit. We are losing everything. The house is being foreclosed on. I have nowhere to go. We are family." "We were never family," I corrected her, my voice sharp. "You made sure of that. You treated me like a guest who overstayed her welcome. You treated me like the help who paid the bills." Beatrice began to sob openly now. Her composure shattered. She dropped her purse on the floor. And then she did something I never thought I would see. The proud Beatrice King, the woman who never bowed to anyone, fell to her knees. She knelt on the plush carpet, her hands clasped together in a pathetic prayer. "I am begging you," she cried. "Please, Sasha, you have so much. You have the company, you have the millions, you have the power. Just help us. Pay the bail. Buy back Courtney's house. Just give us a chance to start over. I will make them apologize. I will make them respect you. Just show some mercy. Do it for me. I am an old woman, Sasha. Do not let me die seeing my children in the gutter." I stood up slowly and walked around the desk. I stood over her, looking down at the top of her head. I felt nothing. No pity, no anger, just a cold, clinical clarity. "Get up, Beatrice," I said. She looked up, hope flaring in her wet eyes. "Will you help us?" "No," I said. The hope died instantly, replaced by shock. "I am not going to help you because this is not my mess," I said, my voice steady and hard. "You are kneeling here begging me to save your children, but you are the reason they are broken. You created them, Beatrice. You raised Dante to believe he was a king who did not need a kingdom. You taught him that women were objects to be used. You taught him that hard work was for other people. You covered for his lies. You bailed him out of every failure. You crippled him with your enabling." I stepped closer, forcing her to look at me. "And Courtney. You taught her that she was better than everyone else because of the color of her skin and the name on her birth certificate. You laughed when she made those jokes. You encouraged her entitlement. You raised a racist and a thief and you called it love." "Sasha. Please," Beatrice moaned, covering her face. "You came here asking me to clean up your mess." I continued relentlessly. "But I am not the maid. I am not the janitor, and I am certainly not the savior of the King family. You spent 30 years building 2 monuments to failure. Dante is a criminal because you taught him rules did not apply to him. Courtney is a pauper because you taught her she did not need to work. This is your legacy, Beatrice. You are harvesting exactly what you planted. I walked back to my desk and pressed the intercom button. Security, please escort Mrs. King out of the building, and make sure she does not return. Beatrice stared at me, her mouth open, her face a mask of horror. You are heartless, she whispered. You are a monster. I sat down and picked up my pen. No, Beatrice. I am just a businesswoman, and I am closing a bad account. 2 guards entered the room. They gently lifted the sobbing woman from the floor. She dragged her feet, screaming my name, begging me to reconsider. I did not look up. I listened to the sound of her voice fading down the hallway. I listened to the elevator ding. I listened to the silence that followed. I looked at the contract in front of me. I signed my name with a steady hand. The ink was black and permanent. Just like my decision. I had not just divorced a husband, I had divorced a curse. And for the first time in my life, I was truly free. The ink on the acquisition contract was still wet when the notification hit my phone. The screen lit up with a number that looked like a telephone number, but it was actually a bank balance. $2 billion. That was the final valuation agreed upon by the Board of Global Transport. I sat across the table from their CEO, a man who had spent the last hour shaking his head in disbelief. He had told me that what I achieved in 6 months was impossible. He was wrong. It was not impossible. It was just expensive for everyone who doubted me. I had taken the broken, bleeding carcass of Apex Logistics and turned it into a fortress of efficiency. I fired the dead weight. I promoted the talent Bianca had ignored. I implemented the software architecture that I owned completely. And then when the stock price was at an all-time high, I sold it. I did not want to run Apex forever. It was a battlefield to me. A place full of ghosts and bad memories. I wanted a clean slate. I walked out of that skyscraper not as a wealthy woman, but as a legend. The press was waiting in the lobby, asking what I planned to do with the biggest payout in the state's history. They expected me to say I was buying a yacht or retiring to an island. I walked up to the microphone and smiled. I am going to make sure no woman ever has to beg for a seat at the table again. I told them I kept my word. The King Venture Capital Fund opened its doors the following week. My mission was simple. We funded female founders who had been overlooked, underestimated, and undervalued. I spent my days listening to brilliant women who reminded me of my younger self. Women who had the code but not the capital. Women who had the vision but not the voice. I gave them the checks. I gave them the mentorship. I gave them the power that people like Dante and Bianca had tried to steal from me. Now I sit in my new office. It is on the top floor of the tallest building in Atlanta. The view is different here. It is higher. It is clearer. The sun is setting, painting the city in shades of violet and gold. The chaotic noise of the streets below cannot reach me up here. It is quiet. It is peaceful. My phone buzzes on the white marble desk, disrupting the silence. It is a notification from a number I do not have saved anymore. I look at the screen. It is a text message. The area code is from the federal facility where Dante is currently serving year 1 of his 10-year sentence. I pick up the phone. The message is short. Just 3 words appearing in a gray bubble. I am sorry. I stare at the words. I wait for the old pang of guilt, or the twist of sadness. I wait for the ghost of the love I once had for him to rise up and demand to be felt. But nothing comes. There is no anger. There is no pain. There is only a mild amusement, like remembering a bad movie. I watched a long time ago. He is not sorry. He hurt me. He is sorry he lost. He is sorry. He is in a cell, while I am in the sky. I do not type a reply. I do not ask how he is doing. I do not offer forgiveness. I press the Information button on the top right corner of the screen. I scroll down past the options to call or share contact. My finger hovers over the red text at the bottom. Block caller. I tap it once. The message disappears. The connection is severed forever. I put the phone face down on the desk. I take a deep breath, inhaling the scent of fresh lilies and success. I turn my chair back toward the window, watching the city lights flicker on, one by one. I have a meeting in 5 minutes with a young woman who has a revolutionary idea for clean energy. She needs a partner, and I am finally open for business. The story of Sasha King is a masterclass in self-preservation and the art of knowing your own value. It teaches us that silence is often louder than any scream, and that preparation is the ultimate weapon against betrayal. Sasha did not win because she was lucky. She won because she read the fine print and refused to settle for less than she was worth. Her journey reminds us that we should never invest our souls into people or companies that view us as disposable assets. It is a call to protect your intellectual property, your finances, and your peace of mind. When the world tries to gaslight you into believing you are the problem, stand firm in your truth, just like Sasha did. Sometimes, the most powerful move you can make is to simply withdraw your energy and watch how quickly the structures built on your back collapse without you. The best revenge is not just surviving, it is thriving so brightly that the people who doubted you have to wear shades just to look at you. If you enjoyed watching justice be served and want more stories about rising from the ashes, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel right now.